Welcome to my tournament deck profile. Today we have Katsuki Bakugo. Katsuki Bakugo is a 6 hand size 28 health character. We are playing this deck under fire. The playstyle is to generate big damage, speed, draw, and also use some very out of the box defense. Katsuki Bakugo's first ability is Response. After your blocked Fury attack resolves, discard it from the card pool. Enhance. Destroy one foundation, your attack gets +2 damage. Normally, you will want to play a bunch of Fury attacks in Katsuki Bakugo, but I decided to go with something a little bit different. Instead of all Fury attacks, we're actually playing 10 Fury attacks. And the reason being is because we are using some of Tenya Iida's attacks. And let me show you why we are using them. The biggest reason is Flying Thruster Kick. Flying Thruster Kick is an attack that is very well statted. It is a 4 difficulty, 4 high for 4, and it has an enhance that says this attack gets +2 damage, only playable if this attack has received a speed bonus. So generally what this means is if you get the speed bonus somehow, this attack can be at least a 5 high for 6 and only for 4 difficulty. This is very powerful. We've seen this used a lot with Recipro Extend. So let's show some combos. If you notice a theme, all of the attacks here actually give speed to Flying Thruster Kick. That is 11 different attacks to give speed, which is something that Katsuki Bakugo lacks. Katsuki Bakugo has the ability to discard blocks Fury attacks from the card pool to make your next attack easier to play, and then also destroy foundations to give +2 damage to each of your attacks, getting your opponent closer to a knockout. However, we theme the deck closely with Flying Thruster Kick, and let me show you how this attack lineup does that. So with all of these attacks, you can lead up with any one of them, and each one will give speed to Flying Thruster Kick, making it a even bigger attack. So let's look at what it would look like if we did Recipro Extend into Flying Thruster Kick. So Recipro Extend will give +2/+2 to your next kick attack. Flying Thruster Kick is a kick. So what this will turn into is a 6 high for 8 damage. That's pretty powerful, but it gets even better. Next up, we have Long Lasting Explosion, which happens to be a Fury, and this is where Katsuki Bakugo starts to synergize even more. So with Long Lasting Explosion, it is already a 5 mid for 6 damage. This is something that your opponent is going to be very wary of. They're going to want to block it, they're going to want to not take that 6 damage, but it's also very fast. So they are going to have to commit some foundations to even block this. But Long Lasting Explosion Enhance allows Flying Thruster Kick to gain +3 speed. So what would it look like if we played this attack lineup? Well, your opponent would possibly block Long Lasting Explosion, and then with Katsuki Bakugo you can discard it from the card pool. But that ability will still stay in effect. So when you play Flying Thruster Kick with Katsuki Bakugo, Flying Thruster Kick becomes a 7 high for 4 damage, but you can buff 2 damage with itself and then buff 2 damage with Bakugo. This becomes a 7 high for 8 damage, which is very powerful. And last but not least, we have Corrosion Lunge, which is also another Fury attack. And this Fury attack says if this attack is blocked, your next attack this turn gets +2 speed and +2 damage. This is a lot like Recipro Extend, except the condition is a little bit different. But that's still really good for a 5 difficulty, 3 low for 5 damage. So with this, we can do the same thing as we did with Long Lasting Explosion, and then that would make Flying Thruster Kick a 6 high for 8 damage attack when it's all said and done. So really, Flying Thruster Kick is the MVP. But I will show you guys another trick. There is the world where you can play Recipro Extend to give your next kick attack +2/+2, but then you don't even have to play a kick attack. You can actually play something like Long Lasting Explosion next, or Corrosion Lunge. And then you can play Flying Thruster Kick afterwards. So it would be Form 1, Form 2, Form 3. The reason why you want to do this is because the kick bonus will float over and it'll wait until you have a kick attack into the card pool. But because you're playing these Fury attacks that give a bonus to the next attack, what happens is you end up double dipping. So you get the bonus from Extend and you get the bonus from one of your Fury attacks and then into Flying Thruster Kick. It only works this way because of the timing. But then your Flying Thruster Kick will at least be dealing 10 damage because of this. So it is very worth it to do this attack lineup sometimes. Now, last but not least, we do play one other attack in this deck, and it might be a little bit hard to get your hands on because they only come one per starter deck, but it is very worth running this card. And the reason why this attack is so worth it to run is because of the stats. You have a 6 difficulty attack, but is actually more like a 4 difficulty, and it has an amazing block mod, which is a +1 high. It has large stats. It's a 4 low for 6 damage, and this is just really good for anything that's a 4 difficulty, because generally being able to be Bakugo and dealing 8 damage after you buff with Bakugo, that's a kill shot. And I was actually able to see where I could kill my opponent with just 2 howitzer impacts. These are very great cards where if you just need that last big chunk of damage, howitzer impact has your back. So I highly recommend this card. In addition, you can also destroy your own foundations to get +2 speed, which is something that Bakugo could use a lot of. And if they're blocking your other really fast attacks and taking damage from those, it's even easier to hit your opponent with howitzer impact. So I'm a huge fan, but if you cannot get 3 copies of this card, I do have an alternative. There is Exploding Pride. Exploding Pride is very similar, however, you are losing about 2 damage, something like that, because the base damage is a lot lower, but you are able to burn your opponent's health. And then you can also make your opponent discard all their momentum, which is not too shabby. The block mod is a +1 higher, so it's not better in that respect, but it is a very good way to budget this option, because you do not need to play howitzer impact. However, it is worth it. So that's the attack lineup. We run 18 attacks. We play 3 howitzer impacts, 4 flying thruster kicks, 3 long-lasting explosions, 4 reciprocal extends, and 4 corrosion lunges. Overall, it is a very inexpensive attack lineup. Everything is either a starter deck card or it's a common or uncommon. So very cool attack lineup that does not use any rares or ultra rares. Next up, we have the foundation base. Starting up, our foundation base is a little bit expensive, but that's kind of just the nature of set 1 cards, because they do not have a lot of variety for fire to have decent block mods and then also a curve. So we had to try and sculpt the deck the best that we could, and it actually still feel great. So we play 2 in the Typhoons. This card is really great, and I think that a lot of people misjudge how strong this card is. With this card, if it's on your field, you can enhance remove, discard 2 cards. This attack is considered completely blocked during the block step. So just know that you still don't have to block physically the card that you use this ability on. So if your opponent's attacking you, you can discard 2 cards from your hand, and then in the Typhoon, you don't even have to block it. By the end of the block step, this attack is going to be considered blocked. So you don't have to block it, but it is going to be blocked, and you take 0 damage. And it's all for 1 foundation and 2 cards. And, you know, that +1 mid block is nothing to scoff at. We play 2 copies of Into the Typhoon. This is really great against decks that have too much speed that we cannot handle, and sometimes our progressive difficulty when blocking is just too much. So that card is just always good to have. Next up, we play 4 Cool Students. This card is also really great. I just realized during my tournament run that this card can be used defensively just as it can be used offensively. And what's nice is every time you're dealing damage with Bakugo and you're taking momentum, Cool Student allows you to change the game drastically by discarding 1 momentum. Your next check to play a card gets +2. This makes any card into the game. So what you can do is when you're blocking, you can give the check to that +2. If you're attacking, you can give the check to that +2. And that being said, this allows you to better pass your checks. And it was a little bit hard finding high blocks for the deck, so I'm just really glad that this has a +2 high block. In addition, if you ever need to guarantee that a 5 check on top of your deck, you can add this card on top of your deck as well. It will remove it from the staging area, but sometimes you just need to check that 5. Next up, we have 4 copies of Heroic Lineage. This is our only speed hate, although Cool Student is actually kind of similar and they can be used together, because with momentum you can +2 when blocking with your check, and I've actually used that defensively in turns with Heroic Lineage. But Heroic Lineage is the main way you want to reduce the speed of your opponent's attack, so that way you can block effectively. Since it's a defense card, I always do 4x. Next up, we have Agitation, and I am trying to get everybody to play cards that say draw, because if you already know about the current meta, there are characters like Kirishima and Eraserhead, and the one thing that you notice in that matchup is there's a lot of draw going on from Kirishima and Eraserhead. So how do you best combat that and catch up? Well, you got to draw some of your own cards, right? Foundations are like extensions of your character, so the more foundations that you play and the foundations that you pick, they make your character more unique. That being said, because Kirishima and Eraserhead get to draw cards, you should be able to too. So with a 2-diff foundation that after your Fury attack is blocked and you draw 1 card, that is 100% worth the trade, and this will allow you to stay up on resources and also have a better chance at blocking against your opponent's attack strings. So this is a 4 copies all day. Next up, we have Latent Skill. This is also a good card because of the high block, and you can flip, discard 2 cards, and then draw 2 cards. What this effectively does is if you ever need an attack in a pinch, you can use this card to discard 2 cards, draw 2 cards, and hopefully you get that attack that you were just looking for, just so you can get that kill shot. Next up, we play 4 copies of Calling for Backup. This card is a lot like Agitation. However, you can only use this once because the cost to use this ability is to flip. In addition, you realistically can only draw 1 card and then not have to discard if it's your attack, because it has to be the first enhance during that attack, specifically with Calling for Backup's wording. But this is still good for a 1 difficulty. You get to draw 1 more card. That means that you get to build 1 more foundation, and you also have an extra card to block with. So I like this card. Next up, we have Let's Fight Bad Guys. This is a card with a very good block mod. I do like block mods with 2 or less. And you can enhance flip. Your Fury attack gets +2 speed. What I like about this is it's a very cheap, costly card. I don't think that it's going to make or break games, but being able to give +2 speed to your Furies just to make your opponent commit 2 more cards if they do decide to block, this can open up your opponent to more attacks later into the turn. So getting some free stats is just nothing to scoff at, and that is why we play 4 copies. Next up, we play 2 Clever Distractions. We were trying to sculpt the deck to have a minimum. We're trying to sculpt the deck to have a maximum of 50 cards, And Clever Distraction unfortunately had to be cut because we mostly play a bunch of mid and high blocks and with not many lows. So this will rarely come in, and also the +3 block mod makes it not as appetizing. So we play 2 copies of this just so that we can reduce the speed on high attacks and maybe low attacks, but only 2 copies because it will not come up all the time. And last but not least, we have 4 Keen's observations. I showed my deck list to, some players, and they quickly noticed that Keen observation does not trigger with any card in our main board. And the reason for this is because we are playing this card not for the ability, but for the stats. I think that 0 difficulty foundations really help you curve out your first turn against your opponent. And it is very crucial that if you can get an extra foundation against your opponent, that you should do so. And 0 difficulty foundations make this a safe option on your turn 1. In addition, this also has a +2 high block, and the deck was lacking high blocks. With this, we can use this to play as a foundation, or we can use it to block with. But that's pretty much the deck profile. We ended up with a score of 1-1-1 in the second My Hero Academia weekly. But overall, I'm very happy with the deck. I try to think of any changes that I would make to it. And honestly, I think once more cards come out into the My Hero Academia card game universe, we will make some changes. But as of right now, I'm really happy with what the deck does. It was a lot of fun. And hey, I really want to get you guys into this idea where we're going to play these attacks and throw 11 speed, 10 damage flying thruster kicks at your opponent with Bakugo. And this was happening all day. So I highly recommend building this deck. It's a lot of fun. I don't think it's that expensive. We're not playing any ultra rares. But I guess we are playing 2 promo cards. And these aren't all essential. If you want to, you can play 2 more copies of Clever Distraction. Thanks for watching the deck profile. Please let us know you are enjoying the content by leaving a like, a subscribe, and even a comment about anything. Until next time, Super Fiends.